Hello, attendees. Welcome to our conversation today with and Cardlytics for Season Without Swag with a focus on advertising and sustainability. We are going to give a couple minutes for attendees to potentially hop off one call they might be on and come to the webinar. So we will get started in a few minutes. Welcome, everyone. If you just joined, welcome to a Season Without Swag conversation with and Cardlytics with a focus on advertising and sustainability. We are going to get started in a few minutes, wait for a few more folks to hop on. So thank you for joining, and we'll get started soon. All right. Thank you, everyone who has joined so far. I'm sure a few more people may trickle in, but we have a great conversation lined up for you today. So want to leave as much time for the panelists. Thank you all for joining. We are so excited for the Season Without Swag conversation with and Cardlytics to talk about advertising and sustainability. It's a great topic. Because this is really the reason why our campaign, Givesley Season Without Swag, started. It was actually with a colleague, Joshua Lowcock, where we were having a conversation about advertising, and we're a very blessed industry, and sometimes, like around the holidays, a lot of gifts and swag can go unused and wasted. And so we wanted to think a little bit about how we could still show appreciation at the holidays in a more sustainable way that gave back. And Season Without Swag was born. So we have great partners like Cardlytics, who's moderating the panel today, who have joined Season Without Swag to say, we're going to choose to use those budgets to say thank you to our clients at the end of the year and donate it to organizations in need in the community. So you may see some communication from your partners throughout the holidays that they're giving you the option to opt into Season Without Swag and choose a donation instead of a gift. And I think from this conversation today, you'll just see that there are so many other ways that we can make certain decisions to be more sustainable in our industry. Also, you are joining this year to be a partner like you did last year as well. So in your New York office, I know there is a Season Without Swag donation bin, where if you do have items that you can donate, whether in the office or at home, branded swag that you haven't used, you can drop it in that bin, and we're donating to nonprofits and shelters this season who may need those items more than us. So thank you both to UM and Cardlytics for being great partners, thinking about being sustainable and the ways that you interact in business. And with that, I think we have a really interesting conversation coming up. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Evelyn from Cardlytics, who will be moderating this conversation. Evelyn, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Evelyn Forrester. I head up emerging revenue at Cardlytics. For those of you that aren't familiar with Cardlytics, we power native advertising across online and mobile banking platforms for hundreds of banks and the top 3 in the country. I've been partnering with Givesly for the past 2 years on Season Without Swag. It's something our organization is really, really proud to do, and something that has had a profound impact on the community, as well as our relationships with our clients. So thank you to the UM team in advance and to Givesly for organizing this. Very excited to hear from our panelists today who are trailblazing the practice of sustainability across Universal McCann and also in their everyday lives. Martin, Stacy, Dino, why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves, your role at UM, how you're involved in sustainability, and then why the topic's personally important to you. Dina, I'll let you actually kick it off.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Dino Matidis. Thank you for having me on the panel today. I sit in the research and analytics team here at UM. My involvement in sustainability at UM, right now, at least, my efforts are really focused around consumers' perception of sustainability among our media partners and how that impacts down funnel conversions and product purchase intent. I'm also looking at the long-term ROAS impact of climate change and how our media partners can contribute, or in good and bad ways, to climate change, and how that has a long-term impact on ROAS for our clients. My personal perspective, I guess my personal involvement started many years ago. I think it really amplified, though, after I had kids and realized that a 30-year problem may not necessarily affect my life in the long run, but it certainly will affect theirs. And I'm trying to go as far as I can to make myself carbon neutral, and doing as many small and big things that I can do.
Thanks, Dino. Martin?
Hello. And yes, thank you all for this panel today. I'm Martin Bryan. I lead strategy in the US for our Johnson & Johnson account in the dedicated agency J3. I also lead our sustainability ERG here at UM. And I work with our employees to develop sustainability solutions for our teams, our communities, and clients. And I'm really happy to have the opportunity here today to discuss this important topic, the role that advertising plays in driving forward sustainable business. We are in what has been deemed the climate decade. It's a do or die moment for us to turn around the climate crisis, or frankly, the consequences from all reputable scientific reporting are quite dire. But on a personal note, my passion for sustainability began, like Dino, many years ago. Before I started in advertising, and after working in investment finance in my 20s, I actually spent years as an organic farmer, and regenerative agriculture and the role that farming can play in carbon sequestration is something that fueled my interest in this field. So I'm only a backyard farmer now, but I love that I can bring my passion for sustainability into this work.
Thanks, Martin. I love the two perspectives. Kids definitely change your perspective on everything. And, that farming background certainly was a great start to where you are today in your position. Stacy?
Thanks, Evelyn, and thank you for having me as part of this panel. I'm Stacy Ann Epps. I work on the investment team here at UM, and I'm on the American Express account. I became involved in sustainability at UM by being a part of an agency work stream. And when I joined the work stream, I wasn't quite sure what I would lean into. But after having a few sessions, sustainability seemed to be the area that I had heart and passion. And it kind of makes sense, similar to both Martin and Dino. I have young kids and I want their future to be bright and not as terrifying as it seems based on this being in this critical decade, but also just my childhood and growing up in the Caribbean, I was also, curious about agricultural practices and what that meant for just soil stability and how that pollutes the corals around us in the Caribbean and things of that nature. So from a personal level, I care based on agricultural practices. I care about how reforestation is implemented throughout the globe because it impacts us. We are one circular globe, everything goes around. And then from an advertising and consumer standpoint, I strive to be more minimalist in my consumerism, and I'm taking daily steps to just ensure that I can minimize my own personal waste. So this work stream really spoke to me. And as I said, this issue is really not an agency issue, it's a human issue, and we all need to have some sort of stake in this discussion.
Thanks, Stacy. And you know what? I forgot that's one of the things we had in common a long time back. I grew up in the Caribbean as well, St. Croix, USVI. So we're both Caribbean girls there. Let's keep that crystal water the way it is. So let's start out with talking a little bit about education and the past role of media and sustainability. When we look back at how a lot of the public has received information in the past on climate change, how has the media and our industry played a role? Dino, I'll let you answer that one first.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's been a major role, and this goes in two fronts. So there's the media partners and the information that they can share, or misinformation in some cases. But then from an advertising perspective, there's the messaging around environmental impact and things that you can do and how truthful it may or may not be as well. And I think the best example that comes to mind is, for me at least, are recycling and just recycling initiatives, and how I remember when I was a kid, there were commercials where, on TV, where you would watch your early morning cartoons and there'd be recycling commercials coming up, and how you can recycle your plastic. And then, I think that essentially was seen as, yeah, this is a good thing. We can recycle our plastic. It's not really causing a problem. But the reality is that most of that plastic was never able to be recycled anyway. The vast majority was not able to be recycled. So it kind of turned the problem of plastic into a bigger problem, because instead of people buying less plastic, they didn't care about it anymore. They just bought it, recycled it, and assumed that it was going to be turned into a bench or whatever. And this is still happening today. There's still commercials today that you'll see that have, and some of it is correct, some of it isn't. And I think that it's just the general education of how what happens when you throw something away, what happens when you recycle something. There isn't enough general information and education around that. So there's kind of an out of sight, out of mind perspective, and it just gets amplified when you see things that are not entirely true. So yeah, I think media itself has had a major impact on that, and it's probably led to a lot of the courses that you may have learned in school, in grade school, about how you recycle things, and that's just one example, and there's certainly more as well.
100%. Anybody else want to add to that piece?
Yeah, I can add to that, and I absolutely agree with Dino. Once I realized that recycling isn't all it's cracked up to be, that kind of makes you dig a little bit deeper. And just coming out of COP26, everyone's talking about 2 degrees Celsius. Like, what does that really mean to the general person? It's like, it sounds like a small number, 2 degrees Celsius. So I really think the education within sustainability has to even just drill down even to a lower baseline, if you will. I don't think the average American knows what their carbon footprint looks like. We hear these terms, we hear carbon emissions, CO2, we might know it from science class or something like that, but I don't think anyone has like a true, guttural understanding of what this means to us. And when we, the Prime Minister of Barbados gave a really passionate speech to open, COP26, and she really was essentially, to paraphrase, saying that if we don't make change now, we're essentially creating a death sentence, especially for coastal and Caribbean communities. And it's really it's an island communities, I should say. And it's just really interesting that we have to take a step back for just the general population should not just see a summit like this as, oh, the nation's leaders are coming together to talk about, 2 degrees Celsius, but it's more than that. It impacts everyone on an individual basis.
That's right. And so how do we think the education on sustainability, or actually lack thereof, or misperception of that, has been a factor in people's sustainability efforts? Martin?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I think sort of echoing what Stacey Ann and Dina were saying, I think people are aware of the baseline issue. 77% of Americans recognize that human activity does have a role in climate change. But that still leaves us 23% of our population that believe that we don't actually play a role. And frankly, as Dina mentioned, misinformation truly is playing a role in that. But it's not the only factor. And sort of as Stacey Ann was alluding to, I think, Sir David Attenborough really put it well recently. He said tackling climate change is now as much a political and communications challenge as it is a scientific and technological one. And frankly, the scientific and technical nature of climate science, it's quite difficult to communicate to the general public. Terminology is really potentially off-putting or boring, and it can overwhelm people ultimately into inaction, or worse, it ultimately can mislead people into believing certain players are actually doing more to address their contribution to the crisis, which is what we call greenwashing. But most people know that climate change is this human-made problem, but struggle with really how they can do something about it. To your question, are we talking about global warming, or is this climate change? Should we be supporting companies that are carbon neutral or carbon negative? To Dina's point, should I bother recycling knowing that only 10% of my plastic waste is in fact recycled? It can be very dehumanizing when we talk about it in terms like 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius are our ceilings. It's a highly complex and interconnected web of issues, as Stacey was just mentioning, that span from humanitarian to biodiversity degradation. And effectively communicating that to people is really got to be compelling. It's got to be relatable, and there needs to be a very clear call to action. And that's incredibly difficult.
Absolutely. I'm just going to jump in there on the relatability piece, because I did want to share for this audience. I kind of stumbled on an author named Mike Brenners-Lee, and he wrote this book called How Bad Are Bananas? The Carbon Footprint of Everything. And it was just very enlightening to kind of skim a few of the points that he makes, from bananas all the way through to technology and what each thing, what humans are doing, all the activities we do, how that impacts our CO2 emissions and our footprint. So if there's anyone on this listening to this panel, if you want to try to explore, just start at a baseline level and try to maybe get a baseline understanding of what does this really mean, I would recommend that book. It's a lot of stats, a lot of, this does that, but it could be interesting if you have specific areas that you want to focus in on.
That's amazing, Stacey. And, that's the kind of advice, given the confusion in terminology, given the miscommunication, and what sustainability is and how to lead a sustainable life, right? Those are the kinds of resources people need to really dumb it down to how they can make an impact in their everyday lives. So thank you. Moving on from, why the past and the miseducation and why people, how that impacts everybody's daily lives today, and what you're doing in your individual lives. Tell us more about, how you've seen, how you've seen your employees start to lean into sustainability. And what are you guys doing to meet their needs and their requests and help educate them?
You know, I can take that one. I actually have the privilege, as I mentioned, of leading our sustainability ERG. And we're a task force of volunteers, of employees who are just passionate about combating climate change. So we're working to identify ways that we can make an impact with our personal and professional lives. And even just seeing us three here discussing this and all of the topics that I hope we get to today that will unpack some of the great momentum that's really forming behind the movement and fueled by and it's an honor that I've been able to partner with Dino and Stacey Ann. But at we really are striving to foster a culture of collaboration. Employees are raising their hands, expressing interest, especially with the momentum of COP26. And this passion is something that's fueling the movement at our company. For example, we forged work streams dedicated to pioneering new products and processes, which will enable us to honor our commitment to the climate pledge, which I'd like to note, IPG was the first major advertising holding company to sign on, committing to net zero carbon emissions by 2040, 10 years ahead of the Paris Agreement. But it's not all work. We do have a lot of fun. We want to make sure that it's relatable, and our sustainability efforts this year, for instance, on Earth Day, we launched our first annual Global IPG Sustainability Challenge. Now, this was done in partnership with UN Act Now and their app, which enables you to track and measure your individual climate action. It really makes it a lot more digestible. And we did this over the course of 3 weeks, and we were able to collectively save nearly 2 million liters of water, over 14 tons of carbon dioxide, and we were able to raise enough funds to bore a well in a community in need with our longtime partner, Charity Water. And this is done in partnership with IPG and our commitment to the UN Sustainability Development Goal number 6, which is access to clean water. We even created a social campaign on LinkedIn, so you can check it out, #IPG Climate Action. And I'd also love to note what catalyzed this challenge was our commitment at J3 and and IPG to our client in celebration and commitment to Johnson & Johnson and their Healthy Lives mission, which is their bold commitment to fostering a healthier planet for healthier people in partnership with their empowered employees.
That's fantastic. And it's an amazing thing to be able to do off the side of your desk, given the daily lives of agency folks. So bravo to that. On that note, when you had mentioned your clients, what specific steps and initiatives do you guys have in place to influence your clients and have them focus on sustainability as part of their efforts?
Yeah, I can jump in and start here. So I think what the first thing that we want to do, and I'll go back to this idea of education, and it's just informing clients what the carbon cost is of our media plans, like how much, what is this cost in terms of global emissions. And then once we get a sense as to what the cost is, then what we want to do is work with them on how do you offset that. So I think and there are multiple ways that multiple paths that we're taking to get down there. But for us, the first step is making sure that clients are aware of this. Here's your plan. Here's what the carbon cost is. Here's another plan. Here's what that carbon cost is, so on and so forth. And there are a couple of routes that we're taking to get there. I think the most important thing that we see now is making sure that our clients are informed that there is a cost to it. Every ad that's served, every impression that's fired, there is energy that's being used to do all of that, and there's a carbon cost to it. The important thing to remember and to think about here is that, and I'll go back to this idea that I think Stacey Ann had brought it up, where individuals can make a difference, and most of the emission loss that we have seen over the past number of years has actually come from corporations and individuals and local municipalities. So the idea that we have to rely on federal governments to make changes so that we can hit our climate goals or to avoid a disaster is not necessarily true. There are things that we can do as individuals, as corporations, and in fact, it's probably going to be led by that. Where I think you'll see is that the investment in federal government will kind of push it forward faster. But this momentum is already starting. Green energy is cheaper. Consumers care about it. It's just a natural path that corporations will go down and our advertiser partners will go down. And now it's making sure that as they are thinking about themselves, they're also thinking about the media that they're putting into market as well.
Can you give a specific example of like what that calculation looks like and like how I'm fascinated to understand when you say, well, you know, we're working with media partners, or this is the cost of your this is the carbon cost of your your media efforts. Like what goes into that?
Yeah. So the best and easiest example that's available to almost everyone right now is through the IPA. They have an IPA carbon calculator actually that estimates the cost of media, of impressions and GRPs by channel. Where we are trying to go and where we will go with this is actually down to a partner level. So understanding what is the cost for running impressions on every partner, and then ensuring that that calculation is rolled up and available on flowcharts and media plans so that our clients can see what the dollar cost is and what the carbon cost is, and then give them ideas on how they can offset that carbon cost.
What are the types of things that go into a carbon cost?
So it's generally about the serving of the impression. So let's just take digital, for example. You know, when you serve an impression, essentially you're hitting a server, and that has to be stored, where it's also the creation of the asset itself. It's how long it's on screen. So, you know, a mobile ad is probably going to cost less than a desktop ad. But we have all of that. Well, the IPA actually did a lot of that work, so we can estimate what is the cost of each channel. But it really has to do with the serving and firing of the impression and the server load and the machines that are essentially running that they are using electricity and using energy to do all of that. I think, you know, these are really good questions to ask, because I don't think people really understand that, hey, there is there's a charge, an electricity charge to doing anything you want to do. And we were joking earlier as we were talking through the panel group that at least when I first started, we would get emails, and on the email it would be, save a tree, don't print this paper out. I suspect we'll start seeing, you know, hey, save some carbon, don't send an email, send a Teams message, because it's technically less carbon to send a Teams message than it is to pass an email through multiple servers so it can land on someone's laptop. So that's the kind of thing, just general education that needs to happen across not just our industry, but, you know, all businesses.
Absolutely. I don't think people are aware of that, which is why I really wanted you to highlight it. I mean, that even goes back to, you know, the rage with cryptocurrency until everybody realized the carbon impact there, right? So thank you for clarifying that for the group. So on that note, back to your clients, have you seen any changes in your clients' desire and their values to have a more sustainable approach in advertising? I think, you know, when Martin and I were talking, he was like, well, most of our accounts are like Fortune 500. So it's important for everybody. But I would say, like, what have you seen what changes, meaningful changes have you seen over the past, you know, few years even, or few months even, that have been an improvement or different from before?
You know, I can take that, you know, in reference to Johnson & Johnson and their Healthy Lives mission. I think this is a testament to the shift that we're seeing in the Fortune 500 companies. You know, 90% of the S&P are reporting on their ESG endeavors. And Healthy Lives mission truly for them is an effort to address the environmental impact, social impact, and governance. So Healthy Lives for them, you know, they're working with all of their consumer health brands as we think about healthier planet, and working to deliver full transparency on ingredients used in their products. They're going to have 100% recyclable, reusable, or compostable plastic packaging by 2025. And they're also working with all of their suppliers, inclusive of us, to determine our carbon footprint and to help curb that. So we're really starting to see, you know, Healthy Lives mission integrated into brand briefs. You know, and I got to tell you, it's really inspiring to partner with them and work together with agency partners, our clients, to deliver against these ambitious goals and this mission. It really does elevate the purpose of the work, and it feels, you know, great to have that ability to work on meaningful stuff with our clients. So watch this space. There's definitely more to come here.
Fantastic. Anything else to add, Dino or Stacy?
I'll just
I
add
will
that
add-
in addition.
Oh, go ahead, Dina.
Oh, sorry. So one really quick note that I want to add is that what we are also seeing is that in RFIs and RFPs as they're coming through to us, we are seeing questions around sustainability and our own practices that we put in place. So it's becoming an issue that it's driving some of the conversation and hopefully soon it'll drive some of the decisioning as well. So it's beyond just the clients that we're working with, and thankfully we're seeing it across much of the industry.
So you're seeing that come through on RFIs and RFPs today. Is it something that you guys are proactively pitching or including an existing customers' plans?
So you mean current clients today?
Yeah, is it something you're proactively pushing on them? Like, listen, you didn't bring up measuring sustainability, but we think you should, and we're going to recommend that you do that. And by the way, or we're just going to do that anyway.
Well, I think that's part of the general education that we want to make sure that our clients are aware of. So yes, I think that, like I mentioned before, our first step is to make sure that people are informed, that our clients know what the cost of this campaign is. So so that in some cases we're doing it now. In other cases, there will be more communication internally and externally to our clients about what the cost of the campaigns are.
Fantastic. Stacy, did you want to add?
Yeah, I was going to add that in terms of just the client conversation, we're also proactively trying to engage, I guess I'll say more non-traditional partners who don't fit our usual suspect of partners to kind of help as we're showcasing, here's what your plan is delivering, and here are some other alternatives. It could be within our existing, those tried and true usual suspects, but also there's a lot of innovation happening outside of these tried and true well-known partners that can help to move this sustainability goal along. And I wanted to highlight just a couple partners that, we're kind of just exploring or learning about. Goodloop and Ecosia. Those are two partners that, we kind of encountered during this process. And Goodloop, they're a UK-based company, and their whole product solution is around, planting trees and reforestation, similar to Ecosia as well. That's a search platform that uses profits from their search engine to help support reforestation. Goodloop in particular, they're focused on video. And if you watch a video, it's like a call to action to the consumer: watch this video, have a tree planted. And they are pioneering a really interesting buying model called the Tree PM. I would recommend people explore partners like Goodloop and Ecosia, but I'm pretty sure there are so many other examples that we haven't even stumbled on, where there's a lot of innovation happening within our usual suspects as well as outside of that. And we want to be able to bring that to the forefront during these client discussions, whether it's with existing partners or new partners.
Fantastic. And so we covered off on changes you've seen from your clients and folks that you're working with. How are you starting to see the industry as a whole take more action to hold each other accountable?
I think the best example of this was, in fact, last week. AdNet had a global summit. It was broadcast from Glasgow during COP26 and brought together the industry, advertising professionals from around the world, discussing topics related to the climate emergency and what we in advertising can do to respond to it. There were a ton of sessions that were really informative, really interesting innovators and leaders in the space, and covered topics sort of ranging from how do we combat climate disinformation in advertising, or how do we reduce the carbon footprint to create the actual ad itself, or in media planning, as we've alluded to. So I'd encourage anybody who'd like to learn more, definitely check them out online. AdNet is a really wonderful organization that's driving a lot of change in this space.
Fantastic. AdNet. Thank you for sharing that. Stacy, Dino, do you have any other thoughts?
No, I think we talked about some of the initiatives that the industry is doing, like the IPA carbon calculator, and just again making people more informed about the cost. I think that's a big first step, and other initiatives like that will be super helpful to help in making decisions and changing directions for everyone.
Fantastic. And so when we think about the future, what's next for We kind of covered off on what you guys are doing today as far as the task force goes and measurement. What is next in terms of forward thinking and what you want to bring to the agency and your customers?
So when I first, one of the things that I first brought up when we created this committee at was, I would love to be able to look inward and see what we are contributing, how we are contributing, how we can change our practices. And that is a big part of what we want to do. We can't have conversations with media partners and clients if we are not willing to assess ourselves and change our approaches as well. So certainly, for us, one of the first things is looking inward. What can we do? There are a lot of things that that Martin and Stacey Ann have mentioned that we are changing, but there's more that everyone can do, and we need to address that and then have our conversations with media partners and clients.
Yeah, and I would also just say, we've alluded to this already, but supporting our clients. We are empowering our employees, us on this call today, to pioneer these new products, these sustainable products and processes. And we would just encourage curiosity. Let's probe on client briefs and support our clients on their own sustainability journey. But one thing I would like to give is a plug to IPG. And how we've, through IPG, been a founding partner of the working group AdGreen, which is bringing the industry together really to help eliminate the negative impacts of content creation. And they've created a suite of resources that are really great that give how-to and tutorials on global production guides for mitigating content as a driver of carbon creation. The other agency plug I'd love to make is for our sister agency, Rapport Beyond. They've just done amazing stuff in this space. Really, really innovative partners who have calculated their carbon emissions because of their as a result of their digital and traditional out of home, and have offset the equivalent of, I believe it's 44,000 cars from the road. By offsetting it, they've been able to track that back to 2020. And they're going to exceed that in 2021. And they also have this really amazing revolutionary air purifying technology that actually goes onto the printed out of home. It's coated in titanium dioxide, which neutralizes harmful smog gases, which are then able to just harmlessly be rinsed away by the rain. So there's a ton of innovation in the space, and we're just at the beginning of the climate decade.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Looks like there's a lot going on across the entire organization and a lot to be proud of there. So given that, a lot of this is new, we talked about, we've been talking about recycling for a really long time, right? With, I know, back in the 80s growing up, right? But there's still a lot of, there's still a lack of education. People aren't really sure what to do in their personal lives, let alone how to talk to their clients within their own organizations. What advice would you give to the folks on the line right now in our industry for approaching their clients and or brands with a sustainable strategy?
I would say, first and foremost, there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to this. Each business is at a different stage of curbing their contribution to the climate crisis, but recognizing where they are in their journey and really approaching any conversation you have with data tied to financial impact and any relatable or compelling facts, it's going to go a long way. All of the sort of conversation we've had about education is really critical and an important unlock there. I think I'd also say that on a human level, I think a lot of collaboration, compassion is needed, because we gotta come together as sort of one team to address this collectively.
And I'd also add to, I would not steer away and not be afraid to make it a financial conversation also. If you can prove and validate that there is a business opportunity by changing your practices or aligning with media partners that have more sustainable efforts in the marketplace, and that trickle-down effect is going to impact your consumers, which will then impact your bottom line. I think that's a great place to start as well. If you can validate that and kind of show the upside, the financial upside of it, that makes the next conversation much easier to have, which is, okay, what do we do to implement it?
Absolutely. And I would add on to what Dino just said, in that, investment leads, planning leads, you are engaging in annual planning discussions. I think posing these questions during those types of pivotal meetings is super important, but more so once you get past that initial client discussion, and if there is interest, think about how you can evolve what is delivered when you're talking with partners about JBPs and larger, incentivized or endeavors based on your investment. Typically, when we are engaging our partners on discussing these annual deals, we sometimes think the deal points are a little bit stale. They're just giving us added value research, or maybe a rate card reduction. We can push them during this time period to be more innovative with how they are delivering value back to us based on our annual investment, and we can push them to think about solving this sustainability product issue, or creating something custom for us that specifically speaks to that. So don't, outside of just talking with your clients and getting their buy-in, think about how our annual planning and how we're engaging our partners can be used upfront to kind of set the stage as you head into 2022 and beyond.
All really fantastic points. I think generally speaking, people think that sustainability actually equals like costs, increased costs. So to Dino, your point before, there's actually a lot of room for it's like, no, it's cost savings. And this is how, and Stacey, to your point, holding your media partner's hand to help them understand what's important and what they can do differently to contribute and become a stronger partner for you. Great feedback, everybody. And then so last question, I know we're running out of time, and I'm sure people on the line might have questions. What is one effort each of you are personally looking forward to in your career, whether at UM or with a particular client, or even in your individual life? What is it you're looking forward to?
Well, I'll say that, just being a part of the work stream and coming out of this session, like everyone has these, not just this session, but, COP26 and all of these Add Net Zero sessions, there's a lot of excitement and passion around this specific issue. And I'm just really excited about figuring out ways to create tangible frameworks and tools that our teams can begin to start using. Dino mentioned the IPA carbon calculator and other frameworks in terms of evaluating that this plan does X and this plan delivers Y. How does that look? I'm really excited to see our people get equipped with the resources they need to be able to help their clients make those better decisions, as well as to be able to engage the marketplace. So from like a business standpoint, I'm really excited about just what's being in place to empower our people. From a consumer standpoint, I've been dabbling in a lot of different sustainability things, and I've also just being mindful of my own technological consumption and usage. I've stumbled on a few apps that I can use in my everyday life to begin tracking and better quantifying what my personal impact is. And I did want to share a couple of them, but there are like dozens of apps available with, that we can use every day as consumers, as professionals. You might even get partnership idea sparks from using these apps. but there's Earth rewards, and I think of them as like Rakuten for like eco-friendly people. And it's essentially, it measures and helps you to reduce or offset your carbon footprint. And then you can also earn points to the retailers that participate in their ecosystem. And they're growing. I'm pretty sure there's adoption elements that need to be checked out, but I'm interested in it from it's interesting to see how rewards can be translated in a different way, right? There's another app called Eco Hero. It tracks your eco activities, and it tells you, similar to what Martin said earlier about participating in that UN initiative. It tracks how much water, land, plastic, and CO2 you can save based on these activities that you're doing. So you can become fit and you can, save the earth. So like, there's just a lot of different innovation happening, and we can use our devices that are contributing to this issue, but we can use them to kind of help empower us and equip us to be able to better impact positively.
Thank you for that. Super helpful. The content that you guys have given, just in terms of books to read, like what to look up, things to research, personal tools to use, has been so helpful throughout this entire discussion. I'll pass it over to Dino and Martin on what you're looking forward to.
Sure. So right now we're kind of taking baby steps within the industry, at least, to move forward. As I mentioned, like, this is an initiative that's just moving forward by itself. What I'm hoping we can do is just push it along to speed things up. But what I'm really excited to see is our media partners and the initiatives that they're going to come up with as it becomes more of a financial upside to be carbon neutral, and how they plan on offsetting, and what are they going to offer in the marketplace. I think that the sky's really the limit there. Stacey Ann mentioned a few that are just starting to pop up now that we're obviously aware of, but it's going to become more and more, especially as consumers take notice of this and they are more cognizant about the climate impact that they are contributing to, just based on how they consume media. I'm really excited to see where our media partners take this, and obviously as our clients follow along as well. On a personal level, wow, there's so much that I guess be hopeful for. I think what I would love is for the conversation to change away from that 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees to just making improvements. Like the idea that we have a threshold that we need to hit, and if we don't hit that threshold, everything else collapses, is not really true. Like, every fractional degree that we offset climate change is going to be an improvement to all of our daily lives. So like, we should not have a 1.5 degree goal or a 2.0 goal. We should have a goal to reduce our carbon emissions to zero as quickly as possible. And then from there, that's my excitement, like, just to change the conversation, to make it more positive, to get people engaged in how they can change the way they are contributing and their just day-to-day lives.
But sort of building on that idea of collaborative incrementality is going to add up to the benefit that we need to see, and the progress we need to see as it pertains to combating climate change. I think that, for me, from an industry standpoint, the collaboration that we're seeing with Ad Net Zeros of the world and Ad Green it is really exciting. So for me, the thing that really motivates me and has given me sort of a boost in terms of my motivation and my inspiration in the work is to be able to layer on my passion into this work. So I would just encourage all of UMers, reach out if you are interested in joining any of these work streams. And if you are at a company that doesn't have an employee resource group focused on sustainability, start it. Raise your hand. I think what really ultimately is going to help us win the battle against climate change is that we all collectively need to work together to create a healthier, more sustainable world together. So that for me is a personal and a professional thing that I'm looking forward to, because I very much so see them enduring.
It's a great way to close it, Martin. And I'll just say, I'm very impressed with everything you're doing. We all know the impact and influence that agencies have on their clients and their media partners, and you sit in the center of it all. So fantastic work, and thank you. I guess we can open it up now to any questions for the panelists. Susu, you probably control that.
Yeah, the Q&A is open, so if anyone does want to drop any questions in, we can get to those. This conversation was very robust, so you guys definitely covered a lot of bases. Can give it a couple. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you know, I can sort of punt a question out that, you know, we haven't addressed necessarily directly, which is, you know, if we're thinking about misinformation, which again has sort of been a core theme of the conversation, and the issue in combating that, you know, I have to plug Magna. They've created, and you know, at the helm is Elijah Harris, 10 media responsibility principles to protect our communities. And they serve for us as a sort of a guide for our investment with our partners. And one of our core principles within that 10 is no misinformation or disinformation. And these principles, you know, there's a media responsibility index that was built off of the back of this in order for us to monitor performance, progress, and really help guide our partners and the platforms on making decisions related to the 10 media principles. And the index has really been, you know, instrumental in driving change that we need to see across all matters of ESG. But as we think about it, you know, in the industry, the Global Alliance for Media Responsibility and the 4As have embraced it. So, you know, I think again, IPG is continually sort of working to push the envelope and quantify where we need that data to help make decisions easier for our marketers, our advertisers, and ourselves as we look to make a better world.
So no questions means that everyone knows what to do, I guess, and we solved all the problems.
Great.
Yeah, if there's no more questions, we can definitely wrap this up. I just want to thank everyone again for this incredible conversation. Thank you to the attendees who joined and listened. We'll be making this conversation on demand, so you can tune in and you know, listen back to some of these suggestions if you ever need any more guidance. But yes, thank you all again. Really appreciate the conversation and your perspectives.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone.